Good evening, everyone. It's Elisa Maria from Elisa Maria Designs, and it is Sunday, August the 4th. It's around 6 p.m. on the East Coast, and John and I did an earlier live weekend wind down, maybe about noon today. And since we signed off, we've been cooking and I've been cleaning, and he's been cooking and I've been cleaning. And intermittently, we have some music on in the background, and we're hearing the news that Debbie may turn into a hurricane by tomorrow along the west coast of Florida where I used to live. So keeping everyone in my prayers that you stay safe and don't take any chances. Stay inside, stay off the beach. There's a lot of kids on the beach right now, and they're just playing around. You could see how angry the ocean is getting. So please, please be safe. So today we are wrapping up 6 weeks of the listening path. It's a 6-week Artist Way program as compared to the 12-week Artist Way program. And the listening path is the creative art of attention, written by internationally best-selling author Julia Cameron. And in week 6, we are listening to silence. We have listened to our environment. We have listened to ourselves, our higher self. We have listened to others. We have listened to our heroes. And today we are listening to ourself. Julia is beginning this chapter with a quote. The word listen contains the same letters as the word silent. A quote by Alfred Brendel. And while I am reading this to you, I am working on my diamond painting. It was previously recorded. It's called Bud by Peggy Collins from Diamond Art Club, but I just call it the Foof because it looks just like my little foofy. And those of you who know, there was a foofy sighting. John is wandering around the background. I don't know if he's going to be joining us. I think he's working on some music, so he might just pop in, or you might just hear him, making a lot of noise in the background. In the final week, we will consciously seek out silence. Now adept at listening in a myriad of ways, we will try for one more. Listening to quiet. Oh, my favorite thing to do. We will learn how to create silence around us and how to gain insight from it. We will learn what silence gives us and how the absence of sound can create not isolation, but connection. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Rumi. The value of silence. The 6th tool of the listening path may strike you as a non-tool. You have learned to listen acutely to sound, and now you practice listening acutely to the sound of silence. That's right, silence. It is by listening to the sound of no sound that we come to appreciate the sound of sound. Silence takes getting used to. We are accustomed to sound. As we experience the sound of no sound, we come in contact with higher wisdom. Our thoughts race, then slow, then come to rest in quiet. It is then we begin to hear the still, small voice, which actually may loom quite large. As the minutes tick past, we experience a sense of direction. We are guided. We sense what our next step should be. In silence, we hear the voice of our Creator. The listening path becomes deeper and richer. A great calm steals over our senses. Silence at first feels threatening. We wake in its unexpected emptiness. As we become accustomed to the void, we find it isn't empty at all. Rather, it is filled with a benevolent something, a higher power that intends us good. As we lean into this presence, silence becomes friendly. Our terror at nothingness fades as we learn that nothing holds something after all. The listening path requires attention, and nothing sharpens our attention like silence. As we strain to hear something, anything, our listening grows acute. The faintest sound captures our attention. We listen to sound and we listen to quiet, the sound between sounds. We are cast into the present, hearing each moment. Our thoughts become spacious. Each moment unfurls slowly. We set aside velocity in favor of attention. We experience languor and we find it pleasant. We feel the rhythm of our body a beat at a time. Peace, heretofore an unknown quality, seizes our senses. We experience calm and the feeling is delicious. Listening for silence, we experience the still small voice. We are meditating, although we might not call it that. Listening to silence, we hear the great sound of the universe. Where there is nothing, a great something prevails. When we listen for silence, it comes to us quickly, a moment or two, and we are in the now. Our sense of time slips away. We sit for minutes that feel like hours. We sit for hours that feel like minutes. A Zen sit of 10 minutes goes by quickly and slowly. The chime of a gong that calls an end to the time reverberates through us and through us. The soft chime is loud. We have grown accustomed to the silence. As we turn our attention back to the world, we find our thoughts sharpened. The time spent in silence has done its job. Our senses are alive and alert. We tread the listening path. So here's something to try. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Close your eyes and allow the silence to nurture your spirit. Even the smallest amount of meditation is nourishing. For the next week, edge forward, adding 3 minutes, more daily. By the week's end, you'll have arrived at 20 minutes, the amount of time allotted by most spiritual teachers. While I like this exercise, I feel like it's a little hurried. I guess maybe because I have practiced meditation for years. And there are times, just like I read in the previous few paragraphs, that a minute can seem like an hour, and an hour can seem like a minute. But I mean, there are times that I sit and I can't settle my mind, and it just seems like a battle. But if you wanted to try to maybe set a timer for 3 minutes, maybe you take a break from your diamond painting, set down the pen. I would even get up from my desk. I would actually move to another area. You know, diamond painting is meditative in nature. And so I do find that those times that we are dedicate to diamond painting, especially if we are diamond painting in solo or in silence, like I do. I'm alone a lot of the time while John is at work, and I sit solo, and I don't even put the TV on. If I do, it's because I'm listening to like a podcast or something spiritual, something that I don't have to think too much about what is on television. If it's music, then I'm just going to get up and start dancing. But I'm usually just diamond painting in silence. And I am aware of the subtle sounds in the background. Like, I find that my hearing has gotten sharper. Like, I can hear the birds chirping out in the yard, which is nice. Or I might experience the church bells ringing like every hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's those church bells again. I've been sitting here for another hour. Time to get up. I might even be attuned sometimes to the sand actually going through my hourglass. So even though it seems like you're sitting in silence, you really aren't. You're just attuning yourself to those. Well, that must have been a validation, because Foofy has found the piano again. And I don't know what it is with this cat with the piano. This is what he must do when John and I are out of the room. out of the house. John is upstairs in his studio, and I am in the foyer where I never get to sit under this bright sun after this dark, gloomy day. And Foofy must think he's alone, and he's playing the piano. But I would say, yeah, maybe when you go to take a break, get up from your desk, take a walk, get some water, and sit down. I always carved out a little spot in my home where I could write or sit and have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, light a candle, or write and just that was my space to meditate, reassess, get centered, shut my eyes. But yeah, I would say, I think that's a good exercise. Set a timer for 3 minutes and just close your eyes and just listen to the silence. And I'd be really curious to know how your 3 minutes unraveled. Did you find it, like that it filled your cup? That, oh yeah, this feels good just to sit and close my eyes for 3 minutes. Were you absorbing those juicy seconds before the timer went off, or were you fixed on the timer where you were listening for it to go off? Was your mind racing? I'd be really curious. And then if you want to, I think maybe taking it to 4 minutes the next day. And even if you have to linger at 3 minutes for a week, you might have to. Or you might have to take 2 minutes or 1 minute. But I think it is a good exercise, and I think it is a good way to check into sounds. If you're going to be focused on the silence, to check into sounds and see how much you really do hear, including that small, still voice. Silence is prayer. Mother Teresa. But Julia, I can't find a quiet spot anywhere, the chapter continues. I am often told it is not always easy to find silence, but it's worth trying. I have had students say that they find the greatest silence and great insight swimming in a pool. Well, that's interesting. Underwater, the world feels far away, and the altered sound environment brings them more in touch with themselves. Some live in the city where there is hardly a moment without the sound of a siren, neighbor, or passing traffic. That is so true. I am in my foyer, and I'm very thankful right now for the lack of traffic, probably because everybody is at the shore. Others still live in chaotic households with TVs, children, and pets, where there seems to be no chance for silence. I've been there. For those whose lives are in no way quiet, I suggest exploring the possibilities. Sarah, a city dweller, finds that going to a church in the middle of the day brings far more quiet than she expected. Oh, if you guys are hearing the excitement in my voice, that's because I'm reading this chapter along with you. But I have said time and time again, if you follow me, when I was living in New York, the way that I experienced silence in such a busy, energetic city, I loved it all, was to run in a church. That was my big tip. I think I gave you guys months ago. My big tip, run in a church or anywhere where you can worship and just soak in the silence. I was lucky enough to have St. Anthony's Church directly across the street from where I lived, above my cafe on West Sullivan Street off of West Houston. And I would run into St. Anthony's, and as soon as that door shut behind me, New York City slipped away. And I would sit there and I photographed, statues and candles, and I took in the smells of the incense, and maybe there was an organ player. Sometimes I even ate my lunch quietly in the back. Or maybe I wrote in my journal, or maybe I did a little bit of, notes for work, or just, a lot of times just sat in prayer. But that's my big tip. Oh my God, Sarah, I wonder if you're a city dweller in New York. I'm not religious, she explains, but I'll walk into a church and just sit there listening for a few minutes. The quiet is striking. I can walk off a city street into an unexpected oasis of serenity. At first, I found it a little disconcerting, but after allowing myself to surrender to the quiet and listen to the silence, I found it to be a place of great peace and insight. Oh, so true, because when I would, get up to leave and open the door and you would hear silence and taxis and people and music, and I would just like slowly back away sometimes and shut the door again and just be like 5 more minutes. Let me go back and light another candle. Others choose to go to libraries, where the hushed rows of books provide a quiet solace. Others still have consciously driven to a quiet spot, an empty parking lot or a back road, and just taken a moment to listen to the quiet inside their car. Greta, a busy mom of three, says she sometimes just sits in her own driveway. It sounds weird, maybe, she tells me, but it works for me. I sometimes just stay in the car for a minute or two. If I've run errands on my own or dropped the kids off at school, anytime I have the car to myself, even for a brief time, I have the chance to seal myself in a quiet space. It helps me get my bearings and it always calms me down. Simply sitting still and listening in the quietest place we can find can create a surprisingly drastic shift in our perceptions. Most commonly, I'm told that stopping and listening to silence brings a sense of calm and possibility. For me, I know that that is true. Most people are perfectly afraid of silence. E. Cummings. I feel intimidated by silence, my friend Jerry confesses. I feel vulnerable when I really listen to the quiet and I see myself trying to avoid it. My house always has the TV on and the radio is always playing in my car. When I run, I listen to music or podcasts. I'm so attached to all of my devices and their noise. I think I'm afraid to be alone with my thoughts. Well, that's one I wish John was here for, because from the time that John enters the household, if I'm home alone and everything's very quiet, but not really, as I just said, he will come in the door and it's like from when he comes in the front door. I hear the screen door behind him. I hear him talking to Foofy, and then he comes in, he drops the backpack and he'll turn the TV on. Then he'll go upstairs and he'll turn the radio on. Then he'll go in his bedroom and he'll turn the TV on. He has everything on at one time. And I'm like, John, how can you think with all this stuff on, all this noise? Doesn't it make you a little for me, it makes me unnerved, as you can imagine, if I'm sitting in silence all day long. And he's like, no, I'm neurodiverse. Someone told him that once, and I'd really like to sit down and have a word with them. And so but it works for him, I guess. This could be true, I tell Jerry, but I will encourage him to try it. What about 5 minutes of silence, I counter, or 2 as an experiment? Can I try it and call you back, he says, his anxiety palpable through the phone. I'll be here. A few minutes later, my phone trills. It is Jerry, reporting in. I turned off all the noise in my house and I sat down and listened, he says. It felt foreign and made me nervous. I'm laughing because this is John. But it is also interesting to me. I remembered something I needed to do today. And I had a few ideas about how I should structure my work week. Sounds like insight, I reply. Well, I think the next time that my husband asks me, I hear all day long, Elisa, where is? I'm going to tell him to sit in silence for a minute and see if he can figure it out for himself. I think I'll try it again, he says. I smile as I hang up the phone. Time and time again, I have seen my students and friends feel nervous about seeking silence. It is indeed a foreign experience for most people. Even those who live quiet lives in quiet places tend to surround themselves with familiar sounds, whether it is the TV or the radio or the pinging of a cell phone or all three at once, because John even sleeps with the TV on. And time again, I have seen the value of creating silence however we can and listening to that silence. Stepping out of our comfort zone, we step into possibility. In silence, there are answers. For all evils, there are 2 remedies, time and silence. Alexandre Dumas. Something else Julia suggests that we try. Create or find the quietest environment you can. Perhaps it is a church or a library. Perhaps it is at home with devices turned off. Whatever you choose, allow yourself to seek it out and then enter it. Note your resistance if you feel it. Do you feel nervous that you will miss something by turning off your phone? Do you feel uneasy without the chatter of people or television in the background? Allow yourself to resist your own resistance. Spend a few minutes in silence and consciously listen. Does the anxiety subside? Do you hear insights or ideas? Do you sense a connection to a higher force? When you re-enter your familiar sonic world, are the sounds more pronounced? Do you have a new perspective on them? Did a sense of calm stay with you after moving from quiet to sound? Try making this a regular habit. Like any habit, it may become more natural with practice. So, as I was reading this little exercise from Julia, I would say that whatever you choose, to yes, enter it. And note your resistance if you feel it, yes. If you can pinpoint why you feel nervous, like she said, like maybe do you think that you'll miss something by turning off your phone, or do you feel uneasy without the chatter of people? She's then asking you to resist your resistance, and I don't know that I agree with that, because I think if you are resisting your resistance, I think what you're doing at that point is you're just practicing resistance. And I don't know how much you can observe about being in silence if you're just practicing resistance. I think it's enough to note that, yes, this makes me feel uneasy or it makes me nervous, and then maybe sit down with a book and write, like make yourself be active. Don't just get caught up in your thoughts. Like sit down and get a book and get a journal, get your journal out. This is the artist way. So you have your journal. If you say, well, I turned off the TV and I tried to go to sleep. Maybe if it's making you uneasy, just jot down a note or two. And if you have to go back to turning on the TV, go back and turn on the TV, but then try it again. But if you do hear insights and ideas, and if your anxiety does seem to maybe subsiding, then by all means, continue with the exercise. But I would say continue just as long as you feel comfortable. Silence is sometimes the best answer. The Dalai Lama. I sit down for lunch at the Santa Fe Bar and Grill with my friend Scotty. Oh, I love Scotty. I feel like I know her. She talks about her in this book. She sports modern glasses in festive red ombre. I ask her about them and decide I, too, will visit the downtown optical shop she recommends. There are lots of European designs there, she tells me, and glasses are just fun. I have pairs in almost every color. I enjoy accessorizing with them. Now, I know I love Scotty. John and I have a closet full of glasses, and we switch on and off. Between the two of us, we must have about 200 pairs of sunglasses. I tell her that I am almost finished with my book. She is thrilled. She is always an enthusiastic, believing mirror for me, with an easy faith in my process that inspires me to keep moving forward. How does it end? She wants to know. Well, I write about listening to silence. She laughs delightedly. Yes, she nods. I sit quiet every morning and often every evening, she shares. I nod that I do. I light incense and I even sit quiet with my dogs. They've learned to do that, she says serenely. I smile, thinking that I'm not sure I can train Lily to do the same. It's the silence, Scotty continues, that I hear the voice of God. I meet her eyes, interested. Yes, I agree. I understand. I've learned that with time, sitting quiet, I can always find guidance I seek, she continues. I believe she is not alone. I myself have found this to be true, and I know of many others who employ a similar practice and are led to higher insight from a power greater than themselves, which they may or may not choose to call God. It doesn't matter what you call it, I often tell my students. It just matters that you keep an open mind to the idea that there may be more help available than you might assume. We are led and we are encouraged by a higher force if we are willing to seek its guidance. I think of traditions that hold silence and either directly or indirectly invoke the presence of something greater. A moment of silence for someone who is suffering or lost. The tradition of silent meditation as a route to contact with God in convents or monasteries. The instinctive practice of holding silence with others when mourning a death. The idea of silent prayer as we directly ask for help. The impulse to be silent and just hold the space when someone near us is in pain. In all of these instances, we are naturally open to and even looking for support from something beyond ourselves. Yes, silence is powerful. Yes, in silence, we can seek and hear the voice of a benevolent something. Silence is a source of great strength. Lao Tzu. Julia has another exercise. She states, I ask you now to experiment with open-mindedness. You do not need to use the word God to describe whatever higher force you are willing to connect with. I was raised Catholic and have often described that upbringing as the greased slide to atheism. When I got sober, my elders told me I had to believe in a higher power, and I balked, explaining that it just wasn't going to be in the cards for me. It doesn't have to be called God, they advised me. So I decided I could believe in a line from a Dylan Thomas poem. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. I still believe in this force. I believe it represents the force of creation, creativity, and spirituality, which I believe are one and the same. So I asked you to find any version of a higher force and sit in silence with the intention to be open to it. You may sit quiet and listen. You may mentally ask a question or express a worry. Whatever is most pressing in your mind is the place to begin. Do you hear guidance? Do you sense peace? Do you simply feel some amount of relief or relaxation? Allow yourself to experiment with opening yourself to silence and note what you find there. Well, I will share with you, as I usually do, when I am in some sort of dilemma. I'm off to the dollar store to buy my Jesus candle. Now, that's not all I do. I say my prayers every evening, and I talk to my beloveds. I talk to those beyond the veil, and of course, I talk to Jesus Christ. And I do find great relaxation and peace. And I do sometimes write my intentions right along the side of my candle, which is, I think that's why I'm so drawn to those candles. I am able to take a marker and write an intention on there. And, as it burns, it's kind of a barometer. Not that that sounds like I'm testing. I'm not testing because I do know that, in all good time, everything will be handled. Like I was watching John Rich. He was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and he was on for maybe about an hour and a half. And he was talking about how he wrote the song Revelation, and it came through him. Fufi has joined me, and he's actually looking at the birds out the window and crying. He wrote the song Revelation, and I think he said he wrote it in about an hour. And so John Rich used this analogy of, imagine you saw Jesus on the side of the road and he needed a ride, and you decided to pull over and say, get in my car, I'll give you a ride. Where Jesus would have said, no, I'll get in the car with you, but you move over, I'm driving. So even though I might put an intention on a candle, I'm not using it as a barometer. I'm using it as a visual most of the time when I write it, like this is what this candle is for. And this is what I'm praying on. And I know that Jesus has got the wheel. Puffy white clouds are snagged on the mountain peaks. A light breeze stirs the pinyon tree. Lily is outside on patrol, sporting a new anti-bark collar. When and if she barks, it triggers a citronella spray, a smell that dogs hate. She will soon learn that to bark causes unpleasantness. I phone my neighbors and tell them the measures I have taken. This evening, quiet should reign. Nick Kapustinski came to my rescue, deciphering the complex instructions for the collar and fitting it snugly to Lily's neck. While he worked on adjusting it, Lily hovered near his knees. He talked to her as he labored. Lily was ecstatic with attention. Here you go, girl. Don't you look pretty with your new collar? You're such a fancy lady. Let me just get it right. A little more snug there. That seems just about perfect. You're such a good girl. Nick's praise lingers in the air when he leaves. When Lily comes back inside, I imitate him, talking to Lily more, not less. Good girl, I tell her. Good girl. Aren't you a lovely little dog? Lily lies down, stretching out her full length, wriggling her neck, adjusting to the new collar. But she doesn't bark. She doesn't even woof. I call Emma and tell her of Nick's kind intervention. So it sprays her, not shocks her, Emma says. Yes, that's much better. Emma, like Nick, is a dog lover. I agree. She may not like the spray, but it doesn't hurt her. Tonight she should be quiet. Here's hoping. Hanging up with Emma, I turn my attention one more time to Lily, asking her, Did you hear that, girl? No barking tonight. Lily doesn't meet my eyes. She may suspect that I am the villain behind the new collar. It's twilight, a full day later. I and the neighbors pass the bark-free night. I call Nick to tell him of our triumph. He says, Lily's a smart dog. She may already have figured out barking equals spray. All day long, Lily doesn't bark. She doesn't even woof. Nick may be right that she has already figured out cause and effect. Bark causes spray. You're such a little smarty, I tell her. Whether from my tone or her vocabulary, she soaks in the praise. Her tail thumps the floor. She crosses to my side for a tussle. You're such a good girl, I tell her. Such a smarty. I note the irony of my situation. While writing a book on listening, my dog has disturbed the neighbors with her noise. At least we have found a solution. You have completed 6 weeks of listening. What changes have you noted or created in your environment? Do you feel more connected to the world, the people, and the higher forces around you? Have you noticed a shift in those you listen to? As you listen more closely, do they? Have you kept up with your morning pages, artist dates, and walks? What have you discovered in consciously listening to silence? Do you find that you feel more connected to yourself? Did you experience resistance, and were you able to resist it? Name one memorable experience of listening. What was the aha that came from it for you? Afterward. Spring has sprung. Fruit trees put forth a festive froth. Forsythia and lilac bushes scent the air. High in a newly green willow tree, songbirds send out cascading notes. Little Lily is alert to sight and sound. Winter's quiet has passed. We have spring, summer, and fall. 3 seasons of song to look forward to. The listening path is in full bloom. It is easy walking out to become intoxicated by your senses. The gay trilling of the birds lifts the heart. Where have you been so long? We mentally ask. Never mind, we're back now, the birds respond. In the winter we had silence, or the hoarse calling of ravens. Spring birds lilt their tunes, many birds singing at once. From the treetops sonatas sound. A full-throated choir greets the day. Across Lily's path a silent beetle trudges. Enchanted by sound, she pays it no heed. Approaching her friend Otis's play yard, Lily wolfs a greeting, soft and musical on the spring air. Otis's wolf comes back to her. He is a big dog. Back at home, Lily eddies by the door. She knows that crunchy dog food awaits her. The walk has whetted her appetite. As I settle in to write, she chomps with fierce concentration. Her dog tags twinkle like little tiny bells against the edge of a bowl. Suddenly, she stops eating. I hear her skittering across the tile floor. She is in pursuit of a yellow butterfly that somehow slipped indoors. It is my hope that you have journeyed along the listening path alongside me, and that the journey has been a rewarding one for you. It is my hope that each type of listening has become habitual to you, that you move among them with ease, noting the world around you, connecting to those you know, and reaching to your higher self, your beloveds, your heroes, and even to silence as you need to. The tools of the listening path are portable and free, not to be taken anywhere. Oh, I'm sorry. The tools of the listening path are portable and free to be taken anywhere and used in any situation. It is my experience that listening deeply is always worthwhile and always rewarding. I move out into the courtyard, taking in the fresh spring breeze. The tall birch trees glitter in the afternoon, light as their many leaves rattle, sounding like a gentle rain stick at the end of their swaying branches. Listening, I connect to the world around me. Connecting to the world around me, I listen. It has been such a pleasure reading this book to you. Maybe you're just listening, maybe you're diamond painting, but I hope you took away a lot of little nibbles of food for thought. I know that I have. I did this book once before with John, but this time around doing it, I think reading it out loud and knowing that I'm, sharing it with all of you had a deeper impact for me. After completing 6 weeks of listening, I have noted lots of changes. I've created lots of changes in my environment. As soon as I hear something in my home that is not right, it needs to automatically be rectified. And that I believe is, becoming more connected to my world. And as my tagline says, create the world that you want to live in. And part of that world is not just the beauty that I bring in around me and the beautiful things that I create, but also I think I was more about the visual and maybe aromatherapy, like lighting candles. You can see candles and you can smell incense and you can see the beauty, and sometimes you can even touch it, pick it up and hold it. But sound, I've been so aware of sound and anything that I can create to make my environment more pleasant. If it's maybe even turning on YouTube and putting on like Tibetan singing bowls while I work. Not so much music, even if it's music for studying or music for working. I kind of like more things that are like wind chimes or a hang drum, those kind of vibrational sounds. Something that even a bell, and following its sound. Like I teach yoga classes, and at the end of my class, just picking up my cymbals and chiming them together, either to indicate we're going to change a pose or it's the end of the meditation. I've now have asked students to listen not only for the sound, but to follow it. How far can you hear it? So I think that those are the changes that I have made, and also being very aware of listening to or listening for higher forces around me. And it was really interesting when I was reading this last chapter and Lily chased the yellow butterfly. And I know for one of my subscribers, and I know who it is, a yellow butterfly is assigned for her. I believe for her dad, if I'm remembering correctly. And I don't know, maybe you're listening now and maybe you're waiting for a sign, and maybe by me reading that chapter, that was it. Maybe you didn't see a yellow butterfly, but I read one. So maybe that was it. So I do notice those higher powers, not just for myself, but maybe I am a vessel to carry it to someone who may be listening and heard something that's like, oh wow. And I think I've said this once before. Like in teaching my yoga classes, there are things that I have said over and over and over again. And then a student will come to me, after being like maybe in 10 of my classes and say, you know what you said? And it was just maybe that they were ready to hear it, or maybe it was really maybe just their time to hear it. So like that is part of my prayer that I've gotten from A Course in Miracles. Tell me where you want me to go. Tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want me to say and to whom. And I think that even though I have my own connections when it comes to putting an intention out there and speaking to my beloveds and waiting for them to get back to me, um, nothing makes me happier than when I have said something and someone comes to me and says, that really resonated with me. I really needed to hear that, or I've been waiting for a sign and it came through you. I think that just, I can't even explain it. I have the biggest smile on my face right now. And also those that I listen to. So, reading the chapter about, you know, are you a good listener? Do you listen intently when people are speaking? Because I think that not only just listening to someone shows that you value them, but also that you respect them and you respect what they're saying. And I've noticed, um, yes, highs and lows to that. And, John and I were talking this morning about being at my cousin's 60th birthday party. And it's a big neighborhood thing. So it's not just friends and family, it's, people that we've grown up with. And um, there are people that, are close to me that I see on a daily basis that choose to, um, bring up conversations that they know are uncomfortable. And I just have like shot that down immediately now more so than ever because of, you know, I don't know that I left it in my last video about, dealing with people for a long time. And I don't want to tolerate people and I don't want them to tolerate me either. I want to celebrate people and I want to be celebrated. So if I find that maybe I'm tolerating a conversation, I find that is becoming shorter spans of time. Before I might have sit and listened and smiled and nodded and like, oh my God, that was so draining, but now it's become shorter and more condensed. And I've always talked to my beloveds, even my little Yorkies and my other little cat, my little tabby cat Bella. I wish you guys can see this guy sitting next to me. He's sprawled out. He's like 2 feet tall, foofy when he's standing up or he's laying down, and he's just so content to be next to me right now. Um, And I guess this is for you guys because I do this. I do keep up with my morning pages. Now, John has noted that he had bought me a scribe for my birthday. And a scribe, if you don't know, is by Amazon. It's a Kindle with a way to not only take notes when you are reading, but to create notebooks. Now, this is just not for me. I am more tech savvy than he is, but when it comes to my writing needs to be pen on paper. Um, but the thought was there. And if it works for him when it comes to us leaving notes to each other, then I will join in that. But I'm not giving up my composition books and my pens. No way. And just the idea of giving up different types of pens that I write with, glass pens and fountain pens. I couldn't imagine. Artist dates. I think I fall short with artist dates, really taking that time for myself to physically take myself somewhere. And I have all the time in the world right now because John, for the next few months is still working. He's retiring in November. And artist walks. Yes, I am, I broke away from everyone at the party yesterday, and I just submerged myself into um, taking all the photographs for the party. I guess that could be an artist date, but not really, because you should do those things solo. But I did do that solo. I don't engage with people. I like to say that that's working because I know that I'm capturing the memories that I'm going to pass on to my cousin. But it's just brings me so much joy. I don't consider it working, but I can shut everybody else out when I am doing something that I enjoy. But I think I have honestly fallen short on artist dates. And so I'm going to put it on my calendar to take myself out on an artist date. And Tuesday, I have an eye doctor appointment that's in my neighborhood, but right off one of the historic parks in Philadelphia. And I think that that's going to be my artist date, where I take a walk through that park, which I've done many a times, but I haven't been there since the spring. And maybe, it's time for me. It's like we're coming into the end of this summer to take another walk through the park, see what's developing out there, and also maybe go to the library. That's right there also. What have you discovered in consciously listening to silence? Well, consciously listening to silence when even though I am in silence a lot during my day, there's silence when I'm diamond painting, there's silence when I'm cooking or cleaning, and they're all different. But consciously being silent, I find it hard to, even if I'm in meditation, because I'm in meditation and I'm not really aware of my senses. I can turn inward so quickly from all the years of practice that everything just, I hear nothing. Everything falls away. A complete silence. But consciously listening, I have used that as a tool when I'm really anxious to really anchor myself back into myself, especially if I get that floaty anxiety, to consciously listen, consciously touch things. That's when I'm doing conscious listening. And I do find that when I can do that, I can feel very anchored to the world around me. And I feel that I am very connected to myself. I don't think that I experience resistance, and I wouldn't resist resistance. I don't know how I feel about the way that you put those two words together. Can you resist resistance? I think because I teach yin yoga, and I would call resistance an edge, and I have taught my students in yin practice, which is the yin practice, that when you meet your edge, which is kind of like your resistance, you don't know if you want to go forward, you don't know if you want to pull back, you really have to take a hold of where you are, that's where I stop and I don't do anything. And I think that's when, I think I said this recently this week, when you don't know what to do, don't do anything. So were you able to resist resistance? I can't answer that one because I wouldn't practice that. Name one memorable experience of listening. What was the aha that came to you? I think I thought I was a good listener, but I found out that I sometimes can fall short in responding because I want to be a good listener and I want to listen to the other person and I want them to know that I'm intently listening and that I value everything that they're saying, and I want them to feel validated and seen and heard. That I fall short in responding, and that's something that I've really worked on through this class, is through this whole book, is not only just listening. Even though I found that I respond in my mind, and I sometimes think that I've responded, which is really strange. And I'll be like, no, I did answer you. And my husband will tell me time and time again, no, you didn't. I think maybe you think you responded. And I'm like, and I have found that was an aha for me. That was a big aha for me, that that I'm not really responding, and I have to be not only looking at him and listening to him, and I'm using John as an example because I'm with him all the time, but or my son, but that I am intentionally responding. And here's my beauty. Here's my boy. He's coming together. My foof. Actually, Bud, by Peggy Collins. There he is. There he is. And I believe that John is going to be reading the next. I'm pointing out his whiskers, how shiny they are, how sparkly they are. I believe that John, he has agreed. I don't know if I told you guys, he's agreed to read of missing persons. Oh my, and I think that you're just going to fall in love with the way that my husband reads a book. He just is like, oh, he was born to perform. He was born to, of all the things that he does, he is a great entertainer. You know, whether he's on stage, whether he's playing solo or he's playing with a band, he's the MC. He is the master. What do they call him? The master of ceremonies. Yeah. He and when he reads a book, he takes on all the characters. So I believe that you're really gonna love Of Missing Persons when he reads it to you. It's a beautiful story of creating the world that you want to live in. Look at those eyes. Oh my gosh. They're so gorgeous and sparkly. Thank you again, everyone, and have a pleasant evening. And as always, I will see you in the next one.